Good evening, you all. My name is Nermin Mollaoğlu. I'm the founder of Kalem Agency. At the same time, I'm the organizer and founder and general coordinator of İTEF, Istanbul Literature Festival. Today is the fourth night. It's a brilliant Friday night of this festival. I hope and I would like to thank you for being with us at the literature about the class. We have Patrick with us, Patrick Ness with us, and he has been translated into Turkish by Yabancı publications, and we were cheering because we wanted to host him so bad. And we would like to thank him for being here with us. Elçin Demiröz Duru is a person that we know for quite a long time. I really admire her, and I'm really happy to share and talk about literature with her, and I'm happy to have her as a moderator. I have you here because I missed you indeed. In a short while, I'll be leaving you with our moderator and with our author, and I'll be also communicating the questions. I'm listening to you guys. Thank you. Hi everyone. Indeed, I'm really very excited. This is the first time that I'm meeting a science fiction writer. I'm not really, I don't know him, but I did my homework. Patrick Ness is writing a science fiction about young adults, and the most popular of his books is Chaos Walk. And I just finished with this one. It's The Call of the Monster. The thing about this, how did your life as a writer begin? What made you a science fiction writer? What pushed you to become a writer? How did you discover that power in you?
Well, I don't actually consider myself a science fiction writer. That's interesting. That's how you started. That's interesting. I like that. I've written books with definitely science fiction elements. Chaos Walking is set on another planet, but I also consider Chaos Walking a Western. You know, it's got horses and chases across, you know, vast farmland and so on. So I've always really, really loved the idea of mixing genre, of taking elements that may not necessarily go together in an obvious way, and seeing if a story comes from them. And so, like you mentioned, A Monster Calls, there's a big fantasy element to that. But my theory and my philosophy really is that there's no such thing as a realistic novel, that even a novel that looks like modern day Turkey right now is still fantasy, because it's still created and it's still constructed, and you're still arcing towards a destiny. And so I always think that if I can embrace that, if I can say anything can happen in this book, all I need to do is create a universe where this story can logically take place. And if I can do that, then I can tell any story. And so that's when I start doing things like science fiction themes and Western themes and fantasy themes. But that is not your question. Your question was, how did I start? You know, I really don't know. I mean, I have always said that in school at age, 12 or 13, we would be assigned in literature class, write a story, make up a story. And I always loved that. I always read a lot. And when I would write those stories as a young person, people would respond to them how I wanted them to respond, which was a surprise. And it's kind of like, oh, this works. I have gotten across what I wanted to get across. And I am a really very, very, very bad singer. But it's what I think, like when someone who can sing really well, I always think that when they sing, that's the feeling they must get, where someone is responding how you want them to respond. And that's the feeling I got when writing. And I love it, for one thing. But yeah, it didn't feel possible, but I did it anyway. So I tried anyway, which I think is the thing that writers do. We don't write, we write anyway.
Peki çok okuyorum dedin.
You said
Nasıl?
you read a lot. What type of books, what kind of books did you grow up with? And how did your reading habit evolve now that you're a worldwide famous author? I have read about these fairy tales of Anatolia, and that opened the gate and doors of a universe. I'm so sorry. I regret that I cannot meet you when I was a young adult reader at a very young age. I wish I could read you at that age. I'm an adult now, and I see that was a thriller for me. It was a page turner, and it was dramatical. It has some dramatical elements. I would like to mention about the call of the monster. So let's go back to question. What kind of books did you grow up with, and how did your reading habit evolve now that you are a world famous author?
World famous is funny, I'd say. When I was growing up, the English word phrase is very, well, I won't use it. It's academic and terrible, but I was kind of on my own. My parents didn't read a ton. My family aren't big readers, not dumb or anything, but there weren't very many books in the house. And so I would just go to the library by myself without any influence or guidance, and would just pick stuff. And so I read really randomly. I read, very young books that were way too old for me, which I think is fine. And so I just read this strange, unstructured group of books, which kind of worked for me because I could see a bunch of different ways that novels could work and how they were written, and that they didn't have to be just one thing, that they could be many things. And I loved things like, who did I read? Well, to be honest, by the time I got to age 11 or so, I started reading Stephen King like every American 11-year-old does, which is totally fine, because there weren't that many teen books when I was young. And so that's actually one of the reasons I write, is because I would have liked to have seen books that, these books that I'm writing them for the teenage version of me, because they were what he wanted to read but wasn't getting. And I think that's why a lot of writers for teenagers write. They didn't see themselves, they didn't see the books they wanted to read, and so they write them. But in terms of my writing style, in terms of how it influenced me, Stephen King is important about, I think, about plot, because I believe very much in story. I don't really believe in those books where people say, ooh, it's 700 pages, but nothing really happens. And, as if that's some compliment. I think, you're creating an artificial place, and a story is a part of that. And I am very, very satisfied when a story works. I find it very, very satisfying. And if I can get my story working, then I can let it work, and I can write the stuff that's really important to me, the characters and the emotions and so on, because I know that the story is working and the structure is working and the machinery is working. So Stephen King was good for that. But then I read a book that you would never have heard of, and that's okay. It's called, the title, I don't know how you're going to translate this either. The title is Jitterbug Perfume. A jitterbug is a dance. And it's by an author called Tom Robbins. And I read that when I was 14, 15. And it was a shocking thing because it was playful. It had a sense of humor about itself. It didn't take itself very seriously. It broke a lot of rules with a smile. And that was really mind-blowing, because I thought, books don't have to always be throbbing vessels of meaning, they can be fun. They can be mischievous. They can break the rules and still make you cry and make you laugh. And that was my real door opening book, as you say. That's the one that really showed me what was possible. And I thought, okay, let's see what I can do.
Süper. Aslında gençlik...
That's great. Well, when we take a look at the boyhood, we have seen Virginia and we see Hawaii and we see California and we see Washington and we see London. Are you London-based now? You're passing lockdown in London?
No, I moved from London back to Los Angeles at the end of 2018. I lived in London for a long time, nearly 20 years, but I moved back to Los Angeles about 2 years ago. So I've had my lockdown in Los Angeles. So there you go. You move to a new city where you don't know many people, and then you get locked down. So, oh well, I mean, it's fine. That's why we have Zoom. So.
Çok zor olmuş.
It must be really hard. Well, about changing places, it really feeds you a lot about the creational process. For example, that you spent your young boyhood in different places. For example, I'm sure it opens different dimensions in your life. For example, which place impacted you a lot? Which place has the most impact in your novels? Which place surprised you most? For example, where the readers can find themselves.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I really believe it's true. I believe that the natural position for a novelist is on the edges, on the fringes, watching. You know, I think we observe and are slightly separate from. And because I moved around a lot as a child, that kind of contributed to that, because it was often a new school and a new place. And I think that really helps a novelist, because you're always observing, you're always looking, like, what's the story here? So I think it really did affect my writing. And I think, that's an interesting question, because I have thought a lot about that, because I don't consciously very often think about where I grew up and how it affects my books, but it definitely shows up. It definitely is there. For example, Hawaii affects my writing a lot, because a lot of my writing is about small communities. It's about isolated communities. You know, it's about essentially living on an island. And I write a lot about sort of a closed community. The geography, I lived in Hawaii as a child, and then I had my teenage years in the state of Washington. And Washington is forests and mountains. And that geography is very present in my books, you know, because I mean, Los Angeles is flat and London is flat, but my books often have mountains and hills and forests. And it's interesting to me that the literal geography of the place becomes a kind of emotional geography in the book. You know, it means something to me. It means something that there's a mountain on the horizon. It means something that there are trees everywhere and that there's this closed in feeling like a forest. So it's interesting that, because I do set my books in Washington a lot, because I love my hometown. But it's more about how that place feels and how it felt to me growing up, and how I respond emotionally to it. So I think any good novel is an interpretation of the world as I see it. And this is how I've seen the world. So it's really interesting to me how it shows up in my books without me consciously thinking about it, and how those things are so important to me, clearly, because I keep repeating them. You know, they're my motifs and they're my settings. And but yeah, interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me how that works. If I had grown up in the desert, would my books be different? If I had grown up in the cold, would my books be different? That's interesting to me. I always wonder about that. You know, what goes on that I don't know. Yeah.
Aslında ben de bu soruyu şu yüzden sordum. Ben de çok yeniyim.
Indeed, I just moved into a village, 2 months ago, for the first time, I left the metropolitan city like in Istanbul. Now I can hardly find an internet connection in a small village.
Yeah.
So the whole energy changes. Well, my whole energy changed. It's not a spiritual thing. I'm not telling you in terms of spirituality. It's about the geography. It's about structure of the community. I'm gaining different perspectives, and my sentences change, and my approach to the happenings of a daily life change. Especially while I'm reading your book, I have seen descriptions of the environment. I really felt myself in that place. That the visuality of your descriptions plays a crucial role. But the interesting thing is that the thing that I created in my mind and the thing that I have seen, they really intertwined. I loved it. I felt that, yes, I dreamt about quite right. So my imagination matches the writer's imagination. We are on the same page, I thought. I really liked it. Generally, when we are reading about the, for example, you love a book, you see the adaptation to a movie, and your heart breaks. Now I see something in the book and I imagine in my mind, and it was just like this, I just did. And that really made me happy. For that reason, I would really like to meet a writer like you when I was young. And I really scarcely had the chance to read a young adult literature. Not a lot of works were translated into Turkish.
Mhm.
Well, my question is, what was the novel character that impacted you, affected you the most? Well, which of your characters conquered you the most? Sometimes they conquer us.
Yeah.
They drive us out of control.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always think that the writing process is a negotiation with the characters of where I want them to go versus what they want to do. And I try to let them have as much freedom as possible because they'll often surprise me. And so I would hope that I wasn't. Conquer implies battle, you know, and I don't want to fight with them, you know. I don't want to force anything on them, but I do want to create a story where they go on an interesting journey and get somewhere. And so I think that probably the hardest journey, I think I may have been conquered by the journey rather than the character. I mean, the hardest journey was in A Monster Calls, because it was the most important to me that his experience, even at 12 years old, be taken very seriously. And that's what I really tried to do. I tried to take the experience of being young seriously, not overly seriously, you know, not more seriously than I would an adult experience, but just as seriously, because young experiences tend to get dismissed. We say, you'll grow out of it. You're fine. It's just a cat. You know, we tell them that it doesn't, you know, oh, the cat's fine. I'm happy with the cat. I like cats. I've got couples. They'll probably run back and forth. You know, we tell young people, you're young. It's not as important, you know, and that's just not true. What's your cat's name?
Çağla.
Çağla. Çağla is the name of my dear friend. For that reason, I named, and she is, or he is, a very famous person in Turkey, indeed.
Ah, that's lovely.
And I believe he likes you. My cat likes you.
I'm good. I like cats. So that's good.
Evde hiç kapı yok maalesef. O
We
yüzden...
don't have any doors in this house, sorry.
That's totally fine. I like cats. I like that he's paying a visit. So I wanted to make sure that you, as a reader, felt everything that Connor was feeling, and to take those feelings as true, not as kind of movie star easy, you know, because he's going through something very painful. And we should take that seriously because he needs it to be taken seriously. And so that journey, making sure that was true and proper and real, that was a real challenge because I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. If I wasn't feeling it, I knew I was doing it wrong. And so I just kept pushing to make sure that the truth was told about this boy's experience. And people seem to have responded, which tells me that I was right to keep pushing. So, that was probably the toughest journey in A Monster Calls. Yeah. Hey. Can you see my cat? Yeah.
En sevdiğim kedi. Evet,
That's my favorite type of cat. Yeah, that's my favorite cat, tuxedo.
Yeah, me too. I've got two. Come on, girl.
Harika. Ben de onu çok sevdim şu an. Çok güzel gözüküyor. Güzel.
I like it. Yeah.
Me too. Hey, baby.
Well, I really want to talk about the call of the monster. Yes. I was a little bit shocked, for example, a cancer patient mom, and you didn't really exaggerate the story. It was really normal. It kept itself as a normal story. I believe it's a very innovative. It's a very innovative and sharp way to handle things, because as a cancer patient, maybe a cancer patient mom or a child can read this, or sometimes I always think about it, about my parents. I was thinking about this. It could happen to any of us. This is like an inner journey. The death theme is there, but handled quite differently, with maturity, accepting it with maturity. And it's like a Buddhism teachings to us. It sounds like it. For example, it's like an inner growth of a child. So I sense something like it's a boy. It's inside a boy. It wasn't a boy, indeed. I don't know. If it were a girl, there would be more drama. But the boy rationally handles things. I don't know. I'm just improvising now. But it's really impacted me. How did you come up with this idea? I believe that there is an inspiration.
Yes, yeah, definitely. There was a wonderful.
Ondan bahsedersen çok mutlu olurum.
No, I'll be very happy if you could just mention the story behind it.
Yeah, there was a wonderful English writer, and her name was Siobhan Dowd. She wrote 4 really wonderful books for teenagers. And this book was meant to be her 5th book. But she wrote them knowing that she had breast cancer and that it was terminal. So she was writing as quickly as she could. And she thought she would have time to finish this book. But she died before she expected to. And so all that she had was 1,000 words and a few ideas. And so it wasn't a book, it was just some notes, really. And my publishers in England brought it to me and said, would you consider turning this into a book, because we don't want the idea to disappear? And my first instinct is to say no, because I don't want to write a eulogy. I don't want to write a memorial, because that's not what she would have done. She would have written a living, breathing book. But the materials, even though they were very small, were so potent and so suggestive and rich and strong that they gave me an idea. And the idea was Connor, the hero of the book, coming out of, I didn't know what it was at the time, but maybe a dream, to discover that in the dream he had destroyed his grandmother's sitting room. Like the clock, the furniture, he'd broken everything and didn't know that he'd done it. And I felt like that feels so strong about what he's feeling, what he's not allowed to say that he's feeling, and the transgression of the breaking of everything. That felt so powerful. I thought, okay, there's clearly a book here. And so I told my publishers, look, I've got to just go the direction the story wants to go. So I need freedom. I can't, I would have to do what Siobhan Dowd would have done if she would have just let it grow. And they said, go for it. And so I took this amazing idea, did as best of a job as I could, as good a job as I could, turning it into a book. And then we handed it over to an illustrator called Jim Kay to add his, vision in the book. He is a wonderful man. He is the most wonderful man in the world. He's so lovely. And his illustrations are incredible, absolutely incredible. And that's the thing. I'm not an illustrator at all. And so I bring the best that I can do. And Siobhan has brought this idea that's the best she can do. And Jim brings these illustrations that are the best he can do. And together we make something even bigger. And that is unique. It doesn't happen very often in writing. And it's just been incredible. So I really feel like the book is the three of us. It feels like me, Siobhan, Dad, and Jim Kay. I feel like it belongs to all three of us. Yeah, so a very unusual start to this book. It doesn't happen very often, but I feel really, really lucky, very privileged to have been asked. And then I thought it would just be a small book. I was really proud of it. I still am. I'm very, very proud of it. I thought it would just be small, and that turns out to be my biggest book. And so, like, great, not a problem at all. That's what people respond to. Fantastic. I am lucky.
Sinemaya uyarlandı değil mi bu kitap?
Is it adapted as a movie? I believe that was adapted as a movie, right?
Correct. I wrote the screenplay to that. It was directed by Juan Antonio Bayona.
Yani peki ne hissettin? Yani şimdi
How did you feel? With the illustrations, you see the illustrations, that was a collective world, that was a collaboration of three people, as you mentioned, but on the other hand, it's a different phase. So that's a multi-dimensional work. So it's just stepping up to a different scale. Did you like the idea, for example? Not every author likes that their books are adapted.
Well, I mean, authors may say that they don't like it, but they all like the money. I think if you get the opportunity, and how lucky I grew up in a tiny town. I grew up in a very, very, very small town where nobody did anything like write books or get movies made. And so it's all kind of hilarious and funny to me that this happens. So I'm happy with it because whatever happens to the movie, the book remains. The book is not deleted or erased, and people can still buy the book, and the book is still mine. And in a movie, you try to find a collaborator who understands it, and then you just have to trust them. And Bayona definitely really understood what I was going for, and I really loved what he brought to my cat is walking across my lap. There she goes.
İsmi ne? İsmini soramadım.
What's your cat's name, by the way? Sorry.
My cat's name is Smudge, which is like if you take like some ash and you rub it across your skin. That's called a smudge. So she's got a little black mark on her nose, and so I just call her Smudge. So yeah, she's sweet. She's not very smart, but she's very sweet. So. Aren't you, honey? Yeah. Anyway. And so this movie, I really wanted to try writing a screenplay because I felt like I knew what worked in the book and what might be changed. And I'm not a filmmaker, so I thought, well, the best I can do is try to start the conversation and say, here's what I believe, and see if anybody responded. And Bayona responded, and it was like the book. I brought the best that I could do, and then he brought the best that he could do, which is stuff that I would never have thought of as a film director, never. And, he brings his best, I bring my best, and hopefully we make something bigger. I'm really, really proud of that film. So, and I feel really lucky to have been able to make it like that. So if you get a chance to search it out. It's really good. I'm really proud of that movie.
Aynı zamanda film
At the same time, I write movie critics. I'm a movie critic. Well, there are a lot of movies that I have to see, but I'll be putting this on the top of my list, surely.
Good, please.
Mesela şu anda mesela
Şöyle bir şey. Let me ask you this. Well, we see as TV series or digital platforms that have lots of series on them. They have different perspectives. They're offering us an international culture and art festival. It's like an international UNICEF, for example. Netflix looks like, you know, UNICEF to me. It's an international platform. Well, do you see yourself after such an experience? Do you think that you could write a TV series or for digital platforms for young adults, for example? You see this series, they're like capsules, they're ordinary, they're not deep enough. I believe that they are just falling prey to popular culture. I'm not only talking about Netflix. It's the same with the other alternative platforms. We need something to tell the narrative of the young people. Would you really consider writing something or visually adapt a story as a series?
Well, I wrote a television series for the BBC. It was 8 episodes long. It was called Class, like a classroom at school. It was in the Doctor Who universe, so it was definitely science fiction. But I've also, my most recent book, that was my other cat, who's called Pablo, which is Spanish for Paul. My latest book, which is not in Turkish yet, is called Burn. It's got dragons. That's been optioned for television by Bad Robot, his J.J. Abrams company. And so I'm talking to them, cats come back. I'm talking to them about how to turn it into television. And I love that idea. I think television is really a novelist's medium because it's a long time to tell a story. So I'm very, very open to the idea. I'd love to, I would really love to. There's the book that I get the most contact about from Turkey of mine is The Rest of Us Just Live Here, which is, my pronunciation would be terrible. So it's called Biz Olu something in Turkish. But I get people talking to me about that all the time. And I've written a few episodic scripts for it for television. So, you know, fingers crossed. But I would love to. I would love to. I would love to, and I would love to because I really want to keep growing. I don't ever want to think that anything's easy. You know, I don't ever want to sit down and think this book is going to be easy, because then I think that's when you write a really bad book. I want to be really challenged, and I want to be nervous in the right way, and I want there to be a really big chance of failure. Because then it makes me really pay attention. And one of the ways to do that is to really challenge yourself in different media, I suppose. And, you know, film and television, and just how can I tell a story? How can I tell a story in a new way to me? How can I really keep myself fresh and paying attention? So I embrace it because I think it's such an amazing artistic challenge and creative challenge. And, yeah, I'd love to. And I want to keep myself constantly challenged because complacency is creative death. You know, you've got to keep growing. And I'm really, really very terrified about repeating myself and just writing the same thing over and over again. That really scares me creatively. So yeah, I'm very open to the idea. And I'm trying. So we'll see. Who knows? It's very hard to make anything.
Evet. Akışına bırakmak gerekiyor. Yetişkinler için 2 roman var.
We have to let it flow. And you have adult fiction novel Crane Wife. What was your writing experience like about the adult fiction novels? Did you change a lot of things?
No, actually.
Was it a different experience?
It really isn't. I mean, it really, really isn't. It's all about what the story needs and what it says it is. Because if it says it needs to be for teenagers, then I just go, great. And I put the same amount of investment, I put the same amount of emotional and intellectual and philosophical and thematic investment in it as I do any other book. So, and I think you can tell when people don't. I think you can tell people who write both for kids and for adults. I think you can tell when they are less invested in their kids' books, which makes me very mad. So no, I really don't find it different. It really is all about what does this story in particular need. If it says it's for teenagers, great. If it says it's for adults, fantastic. If it has the challenge in it, if it has the chance that I might fail badly, then I'm going to go, great, let's see where it goes. So really, really not, but for a very specific reason.
Evet, pandemi sürecinde yeni bir yer.
Through pandemic, you say you moved to a new place. How did this impact you, positively or negatively, through your writing process, this new place that you moved in?
Well, you know, in a large way, writing is so portable. I can take it anywhere with me. You know, it's like all I need is my laptop or something, you know, or a notepad. So in one way, not a lot. But the pandemic this is interesting. The pandemic for me felt like suddenly the entire world was like my job, because my job, I sit in a room and I'm very quiet and I work and I'm by myself. And then suddenly the whole world was like that. Suddenly everybody was in a room by themselves. And, you know, we were just talking visually. And so even for somebody like me, I'm temperamentally a writer. I'm temperamentally quite introverted and shy. Even for me, it got a little much. That like, it felt like we were all on separate deep space missions. You know, we were all on separate spaceships, zillions of miles from each other. So, pardon me, I think that shows up. I think that's impossible not to show up in your writing. Excuse me. Particularly in writing for teenagers, because the writing for teenagers is so much about yearning and about aching and about wanting connection. And boy, has this pandemic shown how important connection is, and why we ache for it, and why we yearn for it, and why we need it. So I think it's been good for writing for teenagers, because that's what it's about. Connection is what it's about. And so when suddenly we can't connect in the same way, it's getting to us all, I think. I'm really glad that we are
Bize
hopefully...
geldi. Umuyoruz ki artık bunları aşarız.
Oh, sorry.
İnşallah, evet, biz de öyle
Hopefully we'll get over these days.
Yeah.
Every country has their own methods to tackle the situation, or they cannot, but we are waiting here. But we're going to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, America has 50 different methods, so it's fine. Whatever my
Türkiye'de pek yok şu an.
In Turkey, we really don't have any methods, or have a few. We're just getting used to. We are learning a new normal. It's a new teaching. We are understanding and learning a new lesson. We should be versatile, flexible, not too closed, maybe not too afraid to change our methods. This is the teaching that we should take home to.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
And we see that our beliefs are changing. For that reason, we should just live in a simplicity. I believe this is the motto, the lesson that is teaching us. Have you ever been to Turkey? Did you have any chance to visit Turkey?
I've not. I really I regret that. I have an
Nasıl gözüküyor oradan Türkiye? Çok merak
How
ediyorum.
does it look? How does Turkey look to the world? I mean, your readers from Turkey.
They are fantastic. They are. So I don't have any thing to, I want to get the title of that. Let's see if I can find the book that I'm talking about in Turkish. Oh, there you go. That's what it is.
Evet, Biz Ölümlüler.
Yes, that's the one. That one. That's the one that people talk to me about a lot. They're always writing me about this book. So yeah, there you go. So that's, which is really pleasing, because that's a really sweet book. And I love that it's about not being the hero of the story. You know, all the stories are about chosen ones and heroes and Harry Potter and, you know, Katniss. And this is about all of those people who are never going to be the hero. And so it's really sweet. I love it when Turkish readers write to me. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to come. I've been all over Europe, and I've been as close as Bulgaria to Turkey. Which is kind of close, but yeah. But I'd love to come, because I mean, it looks gorgeous. And I just read a French novel by, I'm gonna look it up because I'm gonna get it wrong, by Enard novel. It is called that's the French title. Anyway, the guy's called Matthias Enar, and he's it's a book about Tell Them of Battles, Kings and Elephants. Yes, and it's about Da Vinci, and it's about I just finished reading it, and it's about it's not true, but it's about if Da Vinci had gone to Istanbul or Constantinople at the time. And it was just, it's, you know, and how might it have affected his art? Because Da Vinci was asked to design a bridge for, I'm sorry, Michelangelo. That's right, it's about Michelangelo, not Da Vinci. Da Vinci was asked to design a bridge in Constantinople, you know, as was, and his design was rejected. And so this book is about the idea of what if Michelangelo was asked after they rejected Da Vinci, how would Michelangelo have gone to Istanbul, Constantinople? And it was so interesting. It was so interesting. And so, yeah, I've always wanted to go there. You know, I've read, there it is, Matthias Enar, perfect. And it's in the chat. And so, yeah.
Evet. Aynen, Matthias Enar.
Yeah.
Çok enteresanmış, ben de çok merak ettim böyle bir şeyi.
That's really interesting. I'm going to make a research.
That's good.
Well, Istanbul is a city that feeds people. Yeah, Turkey is a country where you see the different dimensions. Now it's a call to prayer. You're listening to call to prayer. It's a village, and it is heard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I just had my.
Ben kendim mute olayım birazcık. Sorun değil mi?
Let me mute myself.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It didn't obscure you, and I don't want to. Should we wait till it's done? I'm totally okay.
Tamam, okay. Zaten bu çok hızlı olan bir ezan bu saatteki. Yani
This is the shortest one. I'm sorry, I needed clarification. Well, Turkey is such an interesting place. And the impact of the pandemic that we see in the following eras, we are feeling this. I believe it will also impact our writing process. Is there a book that you would like to write that you say, I wish I had written this one? Or just a character or a novel that you say, I wish I had done this?
Not a novel, because that kind of regret, I feel like that kind of regret is leads to unhappiness. So I try not to regret. I just try to be happy that whatever those novels are, that they exist and I got to read them. But there is one sentence at the very end of the novel Sula by Toni Morrison, the great American novelist Toni Morrison. And the very last line of the book is about Sula is kind of the anti-heroine to our heroine. And they were friends, and then their friendship ruptured and broke, and Sula dies. And it's only at the very end of the book that the narrator realizes what she's lost, and she realizes her grief. And the The last line is just describing the sudden grief she feels, and she says, "It had no top and it had no bottom, just circles and circles of sorrow." And that's how the book ends. And I think that's so beautiful. And I would love to be able to write a book as good as that. Hi, Nermin.
Merhaba. Evet. Gerçekten
Hi, that's a very particular event. We have seen the cats. We had lots of participants. We really liked the participation of the cats. We really loved hosting your cats. Well, we are really delighted to host your cats. Yeah. In Turkey, it's a must-have, cats. Yeah. Well, Elçin, congratulations on your last questions. I was really wondering if Patrick would love to come to Istanbul. I wish we could just organize a face-to-face event, maybe next year, this time, around this time.
şimdiden evet, gelecek yıl Haziran'da.
Well, next June, we would love to host you in Istanbul. We are inviting you officially now.
Let's see what the year brings, but I would love to come if I can. So.
Türkiye'dekiler genellikle şu soruyu
In Turkey, we love asking this question. What do you think about Turkey? What do you know about Turkey? This is our favorite question indeed. As a literature agent, do you know or have you read an author from Turkey? Because we're really very curious. Readers are curious. Have you read a Turkish author ever?
Yeah, I mean, I've read a couple of Orhan Pamuk, who is, you know, the one who gets exported the most, you know, into English definitely, is Orhan Pamuk. And I've read a couple of books by him. I also have mentioned this book a lot. There's a Turkish-American writer, and her name is Elif Batuman. And she wrote a book last year, or 2 years ago, called The Idiot. And it is so funny. It is the funniest book I've read in the last 10 years. And it's just, she talks about being a Turkish-American student. And she's wonderful. And I happen to be very, very lucky to have a slight friendship with Elif Shafak, who is an extraordinary person and one of the very smartest people I've ever met, ever in my life. I think she's incredible, and a wonderful, wonderful novelist. So,
Elif Batuman'dan bahsediyor, değil mi?
Do you mean Elif Batuman?
Yes. And I mean Elif Batuman about the book, but I also mean Elif Shafak. So two different people, two different Elifs. I happen to know Elif Shafak, if I'm saying her last name correctly, who I think is a genius.
Evet, çok doğru söylüyorsun.
Yes, correctly. You're pronouncing correctly. Yes.
Bu arada daha öncesinde...
Thank you so much. Before the event started, I just told you that you are a very lucky writer. You're translated by the best translators and the yabancı and Deli Dolu publications. They love you, especially Chaos Walk.
Yeah, I love them. So.
Chaos Walk was translated by Eren Burak. Yes, to meet your translators, you should come to Turkey.
Yeah.
Yabancı publications prepared particular stance, a special stance for you. They'll be doing more if you come here. I don't have many more questions. I would like to thank to our interpreter, Züleyha.
Yes.
She has just arrived from Pakistan. She is interpreting this session now. It's a really different geography, meeting point. Elçin, would you like to add something? I was really delighted. It just opened up horizons. And I'll be watching the movie and I'll be reading that book. I'll just find it. I hope our paths cross again and in Istanbul, hopefully.
That'd be great.
That's my wish for the future.
Yeah, me too. That'd be
for
lovely.
The next session. Do you know any Turkish words?
No.
Let me teach you one. Selam olsun. Evet, şöyle yapıp...
Selam olsun. This is the gesture. That means hello.
Lamos.
Selam olsun.
Lamos.
Selam olsun.
Selam olsun. Sorry, I thought you were saying to say lamos. Selam olsun. Yeah, I mean, I try to, whenever I'm in any country, I try to, when I'm there, I ask them, how do I say please and thank you? Where is the bathroom? And to count, you know, so that's what I would have done when I got to Istanbul. So, I mean, I've met a lot of Turkish people in the world, just because you do. And there's actually, in the Crane Wife, there's a Turkish character called Mehmet, who's based on a Mehmet that I knew. Yeah, but unfortunately, selam
olsun.
Selam olsun.
Yeah, first one, first one I've ever learned, just because I don't know your alphabet and the diacritics marks, and so I feel like my pronunciation would be terrible. So I've tried not to. Yeah.
You'll learn when you get here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a very delightful session. Hope to see you. Selam olsun. Greetings to everyone.